License and registration. Do you know why I pulled you over today?
No, sir, I don't think I did anything wrong.
You drifted lanes without a signal a few blocks back. You missed that?
I haven't changed lanes in a couple miles.
We'll see. Any weapons or drugs in the vehicle?
I don't have.
Turn around. Hands behind your back.
Wait, this isn't what it looks like. I found contraband in his car.
We reviewed the body cam. You were the one who planted it. Hands behind your back. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to a lawyer. If you can't afford one, one will be provided.
This can't be real. This can't be real.
Officer Trent Mallory had one goal that afternoon: hit his monthly numbers and look like a top performer. He'd learned a shortcut that wasn't in any training manual: work the right streets, pick the right drivers, and turn a clean stop into an arrest. Trent had worn the badge for 9 years. On paper, he was solid. A neat record, steady evaluations, and just enough compliments in his file to keep supervisors from looking too closely. But out on patrol, he'd built a routine. He cruised the edge of Briarfield's east side where complaints got ignored and witnesses didn't want paperwork. He'd stop people for reasons that didn't hold up, ask questions designed to trap them, and stretch suspicion until it became whatever he needed it to be. That Thursday in early October, just after 4:20 p.m., he was one arrest short of his monthly target. One, he didn't need a real crime, he needed a statistic. His eyes moved from car to car looking for opportunity, not danger. Then he spotted a black sedan, clean and well-maintained, driven by a black man in his early 40s. The driver wasn't speeding, he wasn't drifting. No broken taillight, no expired tag, no reason at all. Trent slid in behind him anyway and stayed there for 2 blocks, close enough to pressure, far enough to pretend it was random. Then the lights came on. The sedan pulled over immediately, smooth and controlled, like the driver had nothing to hide and no desire to argue. Trent liked that. Cooperative people were easier to manage. They didn't escalate, so you could escalate for them. He stepped out, adjusted his duty belt, and approached with that practiced confidence. Chin up, shoulders square, eyes scanning the cabin like he already knew what he'd find. The window was down before he even reached it. The driver's hands were visible on the wheel, calm face, neutral expression, license and registration. The driver moved slowly, deliberately, and handed both over without hesitation. Trent glanced at the name, Marcus Devereaux. 41 West County address, clean record, valid license, current registration, no flags. Trent didn't like no flags. "I stopped you for failing to signal back there," Trent said, nodding toward an intersection they'd passed minutes earlier. Marcus didn't argue, understood. Trent watched for irritation, nothing, so he tried to create a crack. "You been drinking?" "No, sir." "Any weapons in the vehicle?" "No, sir." "Any drugs?" "Anything illegal?" "No, sir." The answers were steady, too steady. It felt like the driver had training, like he knew how these conversations usually went. That bothered Trent more than fear ever did. Fear gave you control. Composure made you work. Trent took the documents back to his cruiser and let the silence stretch. He ran checks he didn't need, typed slowly, stared into the rearview mirror to see if Marcus would fidget. Marcus didn't. He sat still, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, like this delay was just a predictable part of the script. After nearly 12 minutes, Trent returned. His tone wasn't routine anymore. It was sharper, like a decision had already been made. "Step out of the vehicle." Marcus turned his head slightly. "May I ask why?" Trent leaned closer. "Because I'm ordering you to. I have reasonable suspicion." A brief pause, then Marcus nodded. "Understood." He opened the door and stepped onto the shoulder slowly, making sure his movements couldn't be twisted into anything else. He stood upright, relaxed but alert. And for the first time, Trent noticed something he didn't expect. Marcus wasn't scared. There was a look in his eyes, quiet, controlled certainty, like he knew exactly what Trent was trying to do and like he'd already planned for it. Trent pointed toward the rear of the sedan, back of the car. "Now," Marcus complied and stopped near the trunk. Traffic rushed past, late afternoon light flashing off windshields. Trent turned back toward the driver's door, jaw tight, already running the next steps in his head. He was about to do what he always did, and this time he had no idea how exposed he was. Trent kept Marcus posted at the trunk like it was standard procedure. But it wasn't about safety. It was positioning. If Marcus stayed behind the car, he couldn't see what Trent was doing inside the cabin, and he couldn't call it out in real time. "Stay right there," Trent said, not even looking back. Marcus nodded once. "Yes, sir." Trent opened the driver's door and leaned in with exaggerated thoroughness. He lifted the floor mat, ran fingers along the seam of the seat, popped the glove compartment, and made a show of checking the center console. It was theater-wide movements, loud rustling, the performance of good police work for any passing eyes. Marcus watched from the rear, calm and unreadable. Trent's left hand kept the act going. His right hand did the real work. Without turning his head, Trent slid 2 fingers into the small utility pouch near his belt line. A tiny plastic baggie, clear, twisted at the top. Inside, a chalky mix, crushed tablets and powder. The kind of thing that could turn a clean driver into a felony arrest with a single sentence on a report. He'd used it before, more than once. It was his emergency lever, his way to make the story match the outcome he'd already chosen. Trent crouched, blocking the view with his body, and pushed the baggie under the driver's seat, just far enough back to look hidden, not so far that it couldn't be found. He paused half a second, adjusted it like a man arranging evidence for a photo, then straightened up and called over his shoulder. "Don't move." Marcus didn't move. Trent reached back into the car again, this time more deliberately. He shifted his stance so Marcus couldn't see his hands. Then, with the same dramatic flair he'd used in other stops, he pulled the baggie out and held it up between two fingers like a trophy. "Well, look at that," Trent said loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "What's this?" Marcus stared at it, then at Trent. No panic, no stammer, no sudden anger, just a steady, flat look that said he was watching a man lie in real time. "I've never seen that before," Marcus said. "I don't know what that is and it's not mine." Trent smiled, tight and satisfied. "That's what they all say." He turned slightly, angling his body so the baggie was visible from the roadway like he was creating witnesses. Then he reached for his cuffs. "Marcus Devereaux," he said, voice shifting into that official cadence, "you're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance." Marcus didn't resist, he didn't plead, he didn't try to talk his way out. He simply exhaled once slowly and extended his hands. Trent paused for a fraction of a moment, confused by the lack of reaction. Most people fought verbally, most people begged. Most people gave him something he could frame as non-compliant later. Marcus gave him nothing. The cuffs clicked shut. Trent guided him toward the patrol car with a firm hand on the elbow, firm enough to look in control, not rough enough to trigger obvious complaint. He opened the rear door and placed Marcus inside. "Sit tight," Trent said. "I'm going to inventory your vehicle." Marcus settled into the seat and looked out through the glass like a man waiting for an appointment. Trent shut the door and walked back to the sedan, already building the narrative in his head. Lane violation, suspicious behavior, consent search, narcotics recovered. Clean, simple, repeatable. He'd write it in a way that sounded airtight. He always did. He made another show of searching, opened the trunk, checked the spare tire compartment, even popped the hood like he was being extra careful. He spoke into his body mic with short updates, turning every move into audio breadcrumbs that would later sound like diligence. As he worked, Marcus watched him through the patrol car window. Still calm, still steady. That calm started to get under Trent's skin. It felt like being stared at by someone who knew the ending. Trent returned to his cruiser, climbed into the driver's seat and glanced at Marcus in the rear view. "You want to tell me where you got it?" Trent asked, almost casual, like he was offering a deal. Marcus met his eyes in the mirror. "Officer, you're making a very serious mistake." Trent let out a short laugh. "Sure, heard that one before." He keyed his radio and called for a tow, gave his location, reported an arrest. His voice sounded confident, too confident, like this was just another box checked. Then a new voice crackled back over the radio, familiar, closer than it should have been. "Unit 12, this is County. What's your exact mile marker?" "We're in the area." Trent's smile held, but his jaw tightened. Marcus in the back seat didn't look surprised at all. Trent repeated the mile marker, keeping his voice smooth. "Shoulder near the old water tower." Westbound, he told himself it was fine. Backup showed up all the time. Usually it helped, extra uniforms meant extra credibility. But something about the timing felt wrong. The reply had been too quick, too close. Less than 3 minutes later, 2 county sheriff units rolled up behind Trent's cruiser. Not rushing, not chaotic, just controlled, professional. The kind of arrival that said they weren't here to assist, they were here to observe. The first deputy out was a woman with sharp posture and calm eyes, Deputy Aaron Kwon. The second was taller, heavier build, moving like a guy who didn't waste steps, Deputy Caleb Morano. They'd been partners for nearly 5 years. Their body language screamed by the book. Aaron approached the driver's side of Trent's cruiser. "Afternoon, you requested a tow and called in a narcotics arrest." Trent nodded and stepped out, forcing friendly energy. "Yeah." Simple stop turned into something else. Caleb drifted toward the black sedan, scanning it like a checklist, plates, interior, road position, evidence in sight. He didn't touch anything yet, just looked. Trent gave Aaron the rehearsed version. "Lane violation, driver was acting suspicious. I requested consent to search. Located suspected narcotics under the driver's seat. Subject is detained." Aaron listened without interrupting, eyes steady. "You have the substance secured." Trent hesitated for half a beat. "Yeah, it's logged. I'm finishing inventory." Caleb called out from the sedan, voice neutral. "Where's the evidence right now?" Trent's head snapped toward him. "In my vehicle." Caleb's gaze lifted from the sedan and settled on Trent. That stare lasted just a touch longer than normal. Aaron caught it. She'd seen that look before, the look a good cop gives when a story doesn't fully lock. Aaron walked closer to Trent's rear door, peered through the window at Marcus. Her expression shifted slightly, not alarm, curiosity. Marcus sat upright, calm, hands cuffed in front, eyes forward. No shaking, no rage, no begging. Not the profile of someone caught dirty, more like someone waiting for a supervisor. Aaron knocked lightly on the window with 2 knuckles. "Sir, you okay?" Marcus turned his head toward her. "I'm fine." His tone was steady, respectful. Then he added something that made Aaron's eyebrows lift. "I'd like to speak to whoever is supervising this scene." Most detainees asked for a lawyer, or pleaded innocence, or complained about the cuffs. Asking for a supervisor calmly was unusual. It sounded like someone who understood chain of command. Aaron stepped back and looked at Trent again. "How long have you been on this stop?" "About 25-30 minutes, Trent answered. Caleb was still scanning the sedan. He leaned in slightly and looked through the driver's window. Then his eyes dropped to the seat. There was a small detail, something out of place, something that didn't match how evidence is normally handled. He straightened and looked over. "You photographed the evidence where you found it?" Trent's mouth tightened. "I documented it." "That's not what I asked," Caleb said, voice still calm but firmer. "Did you photograph it before moving it?" Trent forced a nod. "Yes." Aaron didn't mirror his confidence. She just watched him, letting the moment breathe, waiting to see if his tone would wobble. It did. Meanwhile, Marcus spoke again through the glass, like he was choosing his words carefully. "Deputy, you should check the dash camera in my vehicle before any report gets filed." Aaron's head turned toward him. "Dash camera? Yes," Marcus said. "It records audio and video. It's been running since before he lit me up." Trent's face changed, subtle but real. A quick flicker of calculation, like a man mentally sprinting through risk. Aaron saw it, Caleb saw it. Aaron walked around to the sedan and looked through the windshield. And there it was, mounted near the rearview mirror, compact, professional grade, not a cheap gadget. The kind departments used or someone serious about documentation. Aaron looked back at Trent. "You noticed that during your search?" Trent shrugged too fast. "Doesn't matter." The search was clean. Caleb stepped closer to the windshield, eyes narrowing. "That's not a civilian toy, that's high definition." Marcus, still steady in the back seat, added the line that turned the temperature on the scene. "It'll show him reach into his pocket," Marcus said. "It'll show him place something under my seat, and it'll show him find it." Silence hit like a door closing. Aaron's posture stiffened. She didn't accuse yet. She didn't escalate emotionally, but her operational mode switched. You could see it in her eyes: risk management, evidence preservation, immediate containment. She turned to Trent. "Step away from the sedan." Trent blinked. "What now?" Aaron repeated, voice controlled. "Step away." Trent forced a laugh, trying to keep it casual. "This is my stop, my arrest." Caleb took one step in, angled his body like a barrier. "Step away." "Don't make this harder." Trent's hands lifted slightly, palms out, playing offended, but he moved slowly back toward his cruiser. Aaron keyed her radio. "County supervisor to my location, officer involved, incident. Possible evidence issue, request immediate response." The words were clinical, but the impact was catastrophic. In the backseat, Marcus finally said who he was. "My name is Marcus DeVero," he said. "Badge number 4719. Lieutenant, West County Sheriff's Office." Trent's color drained, because now it wasn't just a civilian complaint. It was a sworn officer with a camera telling 2 deputies they were standing in the middle of a felony. Aaron didn't react with shock, she reacted with procedure. Her eyes flicked to Caleb, and in that split second they aligned on the same priority. Lock down the scene, protect evidence, keep everyone alive, and prevent Trent from touching anything else. "Lieutenant," Aaron said through the rear window, respectful now, "are you in pain? Any injuries?" Marcus shook his head once. "No, ma'am." Caleb stepped toward Trent's cruiser, hand hovering near his belt, not threatening, just ready. "Officer Mallory, where's the baggie right now?" Trent's throat bobbed. "In my unit, logged." "Where exactly?" Caleb repeated, slower. Trent pointed toward the front seat like a man trying to look annoyed instead of nervous. "Center console." Aaron opened her notepad and started writing, not because she needed to, because she wanted a clean chain of custody. "You understand we're freezing the scene pending supervisor arrival." Trent's voice sharpened. "Freezing the scene for what? This guy's trying to intimidate you. He's not even in uniform." Aaron didn't take the bait. "No one is accusing anyone of anything yet. We're verifying." Trent took a step forward like he was going to reclaim control. Caleb shifted half a step to cut off the lane, quiet, firm. "Stay right there." The tow truck call Trent had made was now a liability. Moving the sedan meant losing context. Losing context meant losing the truth. Aaron keyed her radio again, more specific. "Cancel tow request, hold all movement, evidence preservation." Trent's eyes flashed. "You can't cancel my tow." Aaron looked at him, calm as glass. "I can, and I just did." That was the moment Trent realized this stop wasn't his anymore. Marcus sat in the backseat and watched it unfold with the same controlled expression he'd had since the first question. Not smug, not angry, just focused, like he'd been through enough scenes to know exactly how this would play out once the right people arrived. Within minutes, a county sergeant pulled in, Sergeant Von Heller, followed by a city supervisor from Trent's department, LT. Diane Rusk, two worlds converging on one shoulder of asphalt, both of them carrying the same silent question. What did you do? Heller walked straight to Aaron. She briefed him fast, low voice, all facts. Dash camera in the sedan. Detainee identifies as West County Lieutenant. Claims evidence was planted. Stop and search captured on video. Rusk approached Trent first. Her face was hard, professional disappointment, the kind supervisors hate showing in public. Trent, talk to me. Trent's posture stiffened. Ma'am, it's a clean arrest, they're overreacting. Rusk didn't argue, she just nodded once. Okay, then she turned to Heller. We need to see the video before anyone says another word. Heller agreed. We're not doing this with opinions, we're doing it with footage. Aaron walked to the sedan carefully like it was a crime scene, which it was now. She reached inside through the passenger door to avoid disturbing the driver's side area and pointed out the camera mount. Marcus, still cuffed, spoke clearly through the open crack in the window. The card's in the unit, he said. Left side slot, you'll see it. Rusk looked at Aaron. Before you pull anything, document the device. Aaron snapped photos on her department phone, then used gloves from her kit. She removed the memory card with slow, deliberate movements and placed it into an evidence sleeve. Heller wrote the time down and signed the seal. Rusk added her initials. No gaps. No oops. If this ended up in court, the defense wouldn't get oxygen. Caleb retrieved the alleged narcotics from Trent's cruiser, but only after Heller ordered Trent to stand back. It felt surreal. A uniformed officer being told to keep his hands off his own evidence. Caleb opened the center console, found the baggie, and placed it into a separate sealed container. Aaron logged the transfer and read the serial numbers out loud as Heller watched. Trent stood there with his jaw clenched so tight it looked painful. He kept trying to talk his way back into authority. This is insane, Trent said. You're letting him run this because he flashed a badge number. Heller's voice was flat. You don't get to debate on scene, you get to comply. Rusk finally faced Trent directly. Trent, give me your bodycam ID. Trent froze. Ma'am, bodycam ID, she repeated. Now, Trent stuttered out the number. Rusk relayed it to dispatch, requesting an immediate upload lock. She wasn't playing defense, she was isolating risk. Then Heller pointed toward Marcus. Get him out, remove cuffs. Not because he's a lieutenant, because if he's telling the truth, he's been unlawfully detained. Aaron opened the rear door. She didn't make a show of apology. She handled it like a professional correcting a dangerous mistake. Lieutenant Devereaux, she said, I'm going to remove the restraints. Marcus nodded. Thank you. The cuffs came off. Marcus rolled his wrists once, then stepped out and took a slow breath. He stayed composed, but his eyes tracked Trent, not with anger, with assessment. Rusk noticed. Lieutenant, are you willing to provide a statement? I am, Marcus said. And I want this handled correctly. Heller gestured toward a county SUV. We'll do it there, away from the roadway. Rusk turned back to Trent. You're going to stand by until we review the footage. Trent's face had that brittle confidence of a man trying to pretend reality wasn't moving under his feet. Review it, fine. Heller walked to his unit, opened a laptop, and inserted the memory card. The screen lit up. A timestamp, clear audio, wide angle, and there was Trent on camera leaning into the sedan. Everyone watched in silence as the footage rolled. They saw the theatrics, the floor mats, the glove box, the exaggerated searching. They heard Trent's voice, sharp and practiced. And then, plain as daylight, they saw his right hand slide to his belt pouch. They saw the baggie. They saw him push it under the seat. A long, quiet hang hit the group, not because they were unsure, because they weren't. Heller paused the video, looked at Rusk. Rusk looked at Trent. And in that moment, Trent understood the biggest problem wasn't that Marcus had a camera. It was that the camera made the truth simple. No debate. No, he said, she said. Just video of a cop committing a felony on the side of the road. Rusk didn't yell. Supervisors don't yell when they're trying to keep a case clean. She just stared at Trent like she was looking at a stranger wearing her department's uniform. Step back to the bumper of my unit, she said. Trent's lips parted as if he was going to argue. Nothing came out. Heller's tone went colder. Officer Mallory, you are being detained pending investigation. Do not reach for anything. Do you understand? Trent's eyes flicked to Caleb's hand near his belt. Then to Aaron. Then to the laptop screen paused on his hand mid-plant. He nodded. Caleb moved in first, controlled and deliberate. Turn around, hands behind your back. Trent complied, stiff and robotic, like his body was trying to exit the situation even if his mind couldn't. Caleb cuffed him, double-locked, checked fit, exactly by policy, exactly the way Trent had pretended to do with everyone else. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. 20 minutes ago, Trent was the authority. Now he was the liability. Aaron opened the rear door of Rusk's unit and guided Trent in. Watch your head. Trent sat down hard, staring forward. No speech. No excuses, just that hollow look of a man watching his own career collapse in real time. On the shoulder, the scene shifted from traffic stop to crime scene. Heller assigned roles like he was running an incident command. Caleb locked down the sedan. No one touches it except evidence tech. Aaron, start a preliminary report and timeline. Rusk, notify IA and get a prosecutor on the phone. Rusk was already moving. She called internal affairs first, then the duty captain, then the city attorney's office. Her words stayed clinical, but the stakes were brutal. We have video evidence of an officer planting suspected narcotics during a traffic stop. Subject is a West County Sheriff Lieutenant. Evidence tampering and false arrest. Need immediate guidance. Marcus stood near Heller's SUV, arms relaxed, breathing steady. The calm was still there, but now it looked less like patience and more like discipline. He wasn't celebrating, he was focusing on outcomes. Heller finally turned to Marcus. Lieutenant Devereaux, give me your version start to finish. Marcus nodded. I noticed him tailing me, no violation. Lights came on, I complied. He claimed I failed to signal. Then he kept fishing, drinking, weapons, drugs. I remained calm. He ran my info for a long time, then ordered me out, pushed me behind the car, searched. Next thing I know, he produces narcotics and cuffs me. I knew what happened the moment I saw how he positioned me. Heller asked, why the dash camera? Marcus glanced at the sedan. I installed it 8 months ago. Too many stops turning into stories that didn't match reality. Rusk rejoined them, phone still in hand. IA is en route. County prosecutor wants the card and a sworn statement tonight. Heller nodded. They'll get it. Caleb walked up with a small evidence kit. We're sealing everything, 2 containers, separate custody. No contamination. Good, Heller said. This will go federal if civil rights violations stack. That word federal hung in the air because everyone there knew this wasn't one bad stop. This was a pattern waiting to be uncovered. A crime scene tech arrived and processed the sedan like it belonged to a homicide. Photos, angles, measurements, glove changes. They documented the camera mount, the seat rails, the exact location where the baggie had been placed and later removed. Every detail mattered now. Meanwhile, dispatch started pulling Trent's prior stops. Heller asked for his arrest history, complaint log, and any cases where he was the sole officer and found drugs in a vehicle. The first batch came back fast, too fast. Aaron scanned the screen and her face tightened. Sergeant, there's a cluster, same neighborhoods, same language in reports, same pattern, consent search, narcotics recovered, no backup on scene. Heller exhaled slowly. How many? 6 in the last 4 months where he was solo, Aaron said. And those are just the ones flagged by keyword. Rusk's jaw clenched. We have a containment issue. Because if Trent had planted once, he'd planted before. And if he'd planted before, there were people sitting in cells or living with felonies, because paperwork said they were guilty. Heller walked to the back door of Rusk's unit and looked in at Trent. Trent refused eye contact, staring at the cage partition like it was a TV screen showing a life he used to have. Heller spoke calmly, so every word would be remembered later. Trent Mallory, you are under arrest for evidence tampering, unlawful detention, and official misconduct. Additional charges pending. Trent's mouth twitched. You're making a mistake, he tried, voice small. Heller didn't blink. No. You did? They transported Trent not to his usual booking lane, but to an interview room held for officer-involved incidents. IA met them at the door. 2 investigators, clean suits, tired eyes, no friendliness. They took custody like they'd done this too many times. Marcus was brought in separately to give his statement. Not treated like a hero, not treated like a victim, treated like a professional witness, the kind prosecutors love because they don't drift into emotion. By midnight, the dashcam file was duplicated, hashed, sealed, and logged. A copy went to the county prosecutor. Another was preserved for internal affairs. Another was tagged for potential federal review. The next morning, the first domino fell. Local news ran the headline before lunch. Dashcam footage appears to show officer planting drugs during traffic stop. They blurred faces on broadcast, but the story didn't need names to ignite outrage. People recognized the pattern. People had lived the pattern. And in the city attorney's office, a different kind of meeting was happening: risk assessment, exposure, settlement forecasting. Because once a video like that exists, the question isn't if the city will pay. It's how much and how many cases they'd have to reopen to survive what was coming. By the end of that week, the department wasn't handling an incident anymore. They were managing a full-blown crisis. Internal Affairs pulled Trent Mallory's bodycam and report history. Not just the last stop, everything. Every narcotics find, every consent search, every case where he worked solo, and the evidence magically appeared after the driver was moved out of view. The pattern wasn't subtle, it was operational. Within 10 days, the county prosecutor opened a task review with a short list of Trent's arrests. Then that list grew, then it exploded. People who had taken plea deals started getting calls. Some were still on probation. Some had lost jobs. Some had custody issues because a drug charge stuck to their name like glue. They'd been told the same thing every time. Don't fight it, the officer's report will win, you'll lose. Now there was video proof that the report could be fiction. Aaron Kwon sat in a cramped conference room with 2 prosecutors and an IA investigator, watching footage of a different stop from 3 months earlier. Different car, different driver. Same choreography, pull over, suspicion, driver moved back, solo search, narcotics found. The IA investigator paused the video and looked at Aaron. How many more like this? Aaron didn't answer immediately. She didn't want to guess low. Enough to break trust, she said finally. Across town, Lieutenant Diane Rusk was in damage control meetings from sunrise to sunset, city manager. Chief's office, legal, HR, communications, every conversation had the same vibe, contain the blast radius. They weren't talking about a bad officer anymore, they were talking about institutional exposure. Because if Trent had been planting evidence, then every supervisor who signed off on his arrests was now in the crosshairs. Every prosecutor who pushed those charges without questioning the pattern. Every time someone complained and got ignored. The city was staring down civil liability with a video file as the centerpiece. Marcus Devereaux met with the county prosecutor in person. He brought notes, a timeline, and an attitude that stayed professional even when the topic turned ugly. "I'm not here for revenge," Marcus said. "I'm here for accountability. If you let this get buried, you're telling every bad cop they just need better luck next time." The prosecutor nodded. "We're not burying it." 2 weeks later, charges were filed. Trent was hit with evidence tampering, false imprisonment, official misconduct, and civil rights violations under color of law. The civil rights count changed everything because it opened the door to federal time. His attorney tried to negotiate early. Quiet resolution, plea deal, minimal media. The prosecution refused. They wanted a public trial. They wanted a message. As the case moved, more victims surfaced, not from the news, through attorneys. Public defenders who had seen Trent's name and remembered how often narcotics appeared in his reports. Families who had never believed the charges but didn't know how to fight them. Within a month, the review expanded to 21 prior arrests. 8 convictions were immediately flagged for potential dismissal. The prosecutor's office set up a hotline for anyone arrested by Trent to request a case recheck. And then the footage leaked wider. Not the full file, an edited clip, enough to show Trent's hand going to his pouch, enough to show him slide something under the seat. It hit social media like gasoline. People stopped debating maybe. They moved straight to how long has this been happening. The police chief held a press conference and tried to sound confident. "We take these allegations seriously. The officer has been placed on leave pending investigation." The crowd reaction was instant, angry shouts. "He was caught on camera. How is that allegations?" The chief's PR script couldn't keep up with reality. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the city's legal team was building a settlement posture. They weren't asking if Marcus would sue. They were mapping when and how much. Because Marcus wasn't a random traffic stop victim. He was a lieutenant with credibility, and his dashcam was a nuclear weapon in a courtroom. Marcus filed a notice of claim against the city and department within 6 weeks. The demand wasn't emotional, it was structured. Unlawful detention, malicious prosecution attempt, reputational harm, and systemic negligence. The city countered with the usual strategy: slow it down, muddy the timeline, argue procedures. But there was one problem. The video made the timeline clean. And the IA review was generating documents that made the negligence easier to prove. Repeated solo stops, repetitive phrasing, complaint notes that went nowhere, supervisors signing off without asking why the same drug discovery story kept happening the same way. By the time the trial date was set, Trent's department had already paid an external auditor to review their traffic stop policies. They rewrote supervision rules. They changed evidence handling. They mandated 2-officer verification on certain searches. They did everything institutions do when they're trying to show we've learned, not because they suddenly got wise, but because they were staring at the bill. Then court arrived. 8 months after the stop, Trent Mallory stood in a courtroom wearing a suit instead of a uniform. No badge, no gun, no swagger. The prosecution played the dashcam footage for the jury, slow, frame by frame. The audio was clear. The angles were brutal. They didn't need drama. They had reality. Trent took the stand against his attorney's advice. He tried to sell the jury on a simple story: misunderstanding, bad angle, mistaken interpretation. "I never planted anything." But when the prosecutor froze the frame and asked, "What is in your hand right here?" Trent's answers started to break. Because you can argue with a witness, you can't argue with a camera. By the end of closing arguments, the room felt decided. Even Trent's posture looked smaller, like his confidence finally ran out. The jury deliberated for 3 hours and 18 minutes. When they returned, the foreperson didn't hesitate. Guilty, count after count. Trent's face went blank, not shocked, not angry, just emptied. The judge scheduled sentencing for the following month and ordered Trent held without bond. Because the court wasn't just looking at one planted baggie, they were looking at a pattern. And a man who had weaponized authority like it was a personal tool. 1 month later, the judge was going to decide how much time a badge was worth when it's used to destroy lives. Sentencing day didn't feel like a finale. It felt like cleanup after a fire, quiet, tense, and full of people pretending they weren't scared of what the truth might expose next. Trent Mallory walked into court in a gray suit that didn't fit his old posture. No uniform. No radio, no casual nods from courthouse staff. He sat at the defense table with his hands folded, eyes forward, trying to look like a man who still belonged in the system. But the system had already voted. The courtroom was packed, reporters in the back row. A few department faces scattered through the gallery, some there out of duty, some out of guilt, some out of curiosity. You could feel the department's brand bleeding in real time. The judge, Marissa Kenning, opened with the facts, not the feelings. She read the convictions into the record like a ledger of betrayal. Evidence tampering, unlawful detention, official misconduct, civil rights violations. Every count wasn't just a crime. It was a statement that Trent had used the badge as leverage against people who couldn't fight back. Then the prosecutor stood and did what prosecutors do when they want a sentence to stick. They framed it as risk. This wasn't a lapse, he said. This was a method, a repeatable process, and it only ended because the wrong person had a camera. The defense tried to soften it. First offense, stress. A good father, a career of service. The words landed like paper against stone. The judge wasn't there to grade excuses, she was there to price the damage. Marcus DeVuru took the stand for a victim impact statement. He didn't posture, he didn't raise his voice. He spoke like a supervisor documenting an incident because that's exactly what he was doing. I complied, Marcus said. I stayed calm, I gave him no reason, and he still decided my freedom was negotiable. If this camera wasn't in my car, I'd be facing charges right now, and I'd be another file that looks clean on paper. He paused, then finished with the line that hit hardest. He didn't just target me, he targeted the idea that the truth matters. The judge listened without blinking. Then she spoke. Mr. Mallory, you abused authority entrusted to you by the public. You fabricated reality and you did it with confidence because you believed no one could challenge you. The court will not reward that belief. She sentenced him to 7 years in federal prison with no early release on the civil rights counts. She revoked his certification permanently. His pension benefits were stripped under state forfeiture rules tied to felony misconduct. When the gavel hit, it wasn't dramatic, it was final. Trent didn't react. He just stared forward as marshals guided him away, like his mind was still trying to negotiate with a timeline that had already moved on. But sentencing was only one track. The bigger track was the city's exposure. Within weeks, prosecutors began filing motions to vacate convictions connected to Trent's old stops. The first wave was 9 cases, then 4 more, then another batch. Some people walked out of courtrooms with their records cleared and tears on their faces. Some got apologies, some didn't. A few had already served time, and the best the system could offer them was a piece of paper saying, "We got it wrong." Marcus filed a civil lawsuit against the city and the department. The city tried to posture at first, standard play, deny, delay, deflect. But their attorneys saw the same problem everyone saw. The dashcam made the truth clean. They settled before trial for $2.8 million. No admission of wrongdoing in the paperwork, just a check big enough to stop the bleeding and a clause that said both sides would move on. The city called it cost-effective. The public called it too late. More lawsuits followed from the reopened cases. Most settled quietly. A couple went to trial and the juries didn't hesitate. The total liability climbed past $9 million once legal fees and payouts stacked. And inside the department, heads started rolling, not with sirens, with signatures. A lieutenant who had approved Trent's reports without review was demoted. A sergeant who dismissed complaints as anti-police noise was forced out. Training protocols changed. Evidence handling got stricter. 2-officer verification became mandatory on certain vehicle searches. They rolled out reforms fast, like a company patching a breach after the data is already gone. Marcus returned to duty 3 months later. He didn't accept an award. He didn't do interviews beyond what was necessary. He just kept working. But he left one thing in his car permanently. That camera stayed mounted under the mirror, recording every drive, not because he expected another corrupt officer, because he'd learned a simple operational truth. If you don't own your evidence, someone else will own your story. And on a random October afternoon, one camera didn't just save him, it exposed a system that had been relying on silence. All right, now I want to hear from you. What city do you live in? Write in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, subscribe. Here we analyze situations where truth prevails only when there is evidence to prove it.